If tomorrow you were to turn into a snake and you began devouring humans, if with that same mouth you told me you loved me, would I still be able to say, I love you, the same way I do today?
This poem is from Gin in Volume 47, The End of the Chrysalis Age. It acts as a shadow hanging over his life. It captures Gin's fear that the harm he has committed to avenge Rangiku has stripped him of his right to be loved by her. Gin is a snake, stuck between his actions versus his goals, making it easy for Aizen to exploit him, keeping Gin trapped in a glass box. Gin found Rangiku starving in the Rukungai. He explained to her that her hunger was because she had spiritual power and offered her a dried persimmon. In Buddhism, the persimmon fruit symbolizes the transformation from the bitterness of ignorance to the sweetness of wisdom, much like the Eightfold Path. Keeping with the theme of connecting Bleach to his Buddhist core, Gin represents the Buddhist Naga, existing simultaneously as a divine protector and venomous beast. Much like the Serpent King Muchalinda, who shielded the Buddha from the storm, Gin dedicates his existence to Rangiku, yet he becomes a double-edged sword rather than a shield. Gin and Rangiku were once inseparable, it seemed, but everything changed the moment Gin watched Aizen steal the Soul King's nail from her body to feed the Hogiku. That's when Gin gave in to the three poisons of Buddhism and truly transformed into a snake. Gin was driven by the anger of what he witnessed, and he chose murder, and he took a Shinigami's robes. He showed greed by hiding the truth from Rangiku while using her pain as fuel. Finally, in his ignorance, he abandoned her to chase after Aizen alone. The irony is that Rangiku wasn't as hurt by what Aizen stole from her as she was by Gin leaving. If you view things from Gin's perspective, his commitment to Rangiku was honorable. Revenge driven by a singular desire to create a world where she would not have to cry, and he was on his path to make that happen. Aizen discovered Gin after he killed the 5th Division's 3rd seat. When Aizen asked his opinion over the man he just slain, Gin replied that he was worthless. Gin from that point was right where he needed to be. By the time of the Vizar incident, Gin was fully complicit in Aizen's holification experiments, walking further down a dark path to stay next to his target. I believe if you're viewing the events through Gin's perspective, his actions allowed him to earn Aizen's trust, gaining invaluable insight. I don't believe Gin valued the lives of the Shinigami, considering the Shinigami are the reason he's walking the path that he's on, despite Aizen being the one who committed the crime. Shinigami is just a costume for Gin, best summed up through his words to Aizen towards the end of the fake Karakura Town incident.
I am a snake. My skin and blood are cold. I have no heart. I slither, looking for prey with the tip of my tongue.
And Aizen let Gin be the best snake that he could be. Aizen ensured from the very start that the snake Gin presented himself as, he would never be able to shed that skin and his sins will always be stuck to him. When I think about Gin's goal, a heavy factor of his success is playing under Aizen's ignorance or his perceived ignorance and using his actions to solidify his loyalty. Aizen is smart and he's strategic. He understands what Gin is doing by placing himself directly in his shadow. Aizen is a social climber just like Gin, so how Gin presents himself to Aizen is exactly what Aizen holds him accountable to. To explain, let's walk back to the start of the Soul Society arc when we first meet Gin. Up until Aizen revealed himself as the mastermind, it's fair to say that Gin was placed in the position to be the central antagonist of the arc. Putting Gin in that position from Aizen's point of view, in my mind, was easy because Gin was too eager to prove himself to Aizen through action. It began when Aizen sent Gin to the West Gate where Ichigo had defeated Jindanbo. Gin severed Jindanbo's arm for losing to Ichigo, and he expelled the Ryoka and left, but he wasn't unobserved. Renji had been watching. Aizen capitalized on this, manipulating the perspective of the incident. I used to find their conversation confusing until I realized the strategy. Because Renji knew the truth about what happened at Westgate with Gin, Aizen was able to manipulate Renji's view of him. By questioning the legitimacy of Rukia's execution, Aizen aligned himself as the compassionate authority figure. By the time Gin arrived at the captain's meeting, the trap was set. He was the sole captain who had encountered the Ryoka, failed to report it, and falsely claimed they were dead, instantly casting suspicion on himself. Any suspicion cast on Gin wouldn't be countered by Renji. If rescuing Rukia was already on his mind, then strategically, there would be no reason for Renji to speak up in Gin's defense. And Aizen continually positioned Gin to be in these standalone moments against the Shinigami, like his complacency in manipulating Momo, or how traumatized Izuru was from his actions. There is a shot at the end of the meeting between Gin, Toshiro, and Aizen. This scene on a reread of Bleach can be seen in two ways. With Aizen creating separation from Gin by warning him not to double-cross him. This sets the stage for his death later on, shifting all of the blame to Gin based on the letter that he wrote. However, this is the first direct warning we can see Aizen give Gin. Whatever he is plotting behind his back by placing himself in his shadow, he is aware. Which is a fair warning because from this point on, there's no return point for Gin. Walking further with Aizen means a betrayal of your ideals, who you were in the past, and even the possibility of redemption. and I believe Gin understood this thoroughly, which is what we can see when he goes to visit Rukia. Gin going to visit Rukia right before her execution, to me, is him completely embracing the path of the dark side and going for a pure act of evil. But I do get why he had to do this, considering his circumstances. Rukia has spent her final hours building up confidence to accept her end, finding a way to be thankful for her life and the bonds that she had made in her life. Gin arrived and broke her resolve, building up false hope and making it seem as her rescue was imminent and her fate lay in his hands. He went so far as to even shock the guards that were escorting Rukia with his words, only to shatter the hope that Rukia had latched onto. It was cruel. To watch her confidence slip and her fear return, raising the question of why Gin would even do this. It wasn't a necessary strategic move at all. It felt selfish, a moment he took for himself. But the way I see it, those words of hope were Gin's last words as the person he could have been. He could have been a hero. He could have saved Rukia. But the words he used to shatter her hope is him accepting the person that he's become, a snake, and this is what he'll be known as from now on. Staying with tradition of my channel, Gin's tragedy is hinted at through his name and Zanpakuto. His name Gin is phonetically linked to silver, suggesting something precious that eventually tarnishes, losing its luster to the air around it. Corruption can also be seen through his Zanpakuto. In Shikai form, it is a Shinso, the divine spear, representing the false face of a captain serving the order of the Soul Society. It aligns with the image of the Naga as a guardian deity. His Bunkai, on the other hand, Kashmina no Yari, reveals his true nature by violently inserting the kanji for death into the middle of divine, transforming it from the divine spear to the god-killing spear. Just as the Naga possesses a dual nature, Gin's blade is feared for possession of cell-dissolving dust, physically manifesting the three poisons. Despite the name of his Zanpakuto, Gin was never going to be successful with his plans, because he was under the false belief that he was still the predator and fear Aizen had yet to recognize. For Gin to be so close to Aizen, learning the secrets of Kyoka Suigetsu, it's hard to imagine with the amount of caution he took, he didn't realize he was caught from the start. One line from Aizen that I find funny occurs towards the end where Rangiku shows up after chasing him through the Sekimon. If you read the room, Aizen explicitly tells Gin, "Deal with Rangiku right here." Yet Gin just takes off with her, and Aizen is just amused by the entire scenario. Gin's final moments with Rangiku are a complete waste. This isn't the writing's fault, but rather a flaw in Gin's personality. Even with seconds left on the clock, he has nothing to express to her about his actions, his disappearance, or why he aligned himself with Aizen, other than calling her annoying. This scene bothers me because he was committed to maintaining the illusion of being a snake that by the time he was ready to strike, it wasn't strategic at all. It was so late in the game. Aizen is already fused with the Hogiku, and Gin is still waiting for this magical moment for Aizen to lower his defense, which is absurd at this stage. If it happens, it will come off stage, which it does. If you study the panels leading up to the betrayal, Aizen's line about Ichigo's friends being bored of trapping rats was actually about Gin. He was the rat in the trap, and Aizen's exposed blade was the cheese. Aizen forced that moment to happen, granting Gin the opportunity so he can further his own goals. The fear of death is the driving force of evolution in Bleach, and a part of me strongly believes Aizen used Kyoka Suigetsu at some point to ensure Gin didn't act on his plans until he was fused with the Hogiku. A god that still fears death will become stagnant in their own evolution. Aizen's immortality and the arrogance he obtained from the fusion existed because he kept Gin around as a control experiment, a threat with the intent to kill him that will push the Hogiku past the boundaries of death. Gin's betrayal feels wild and surprising on a first read. You can feel it in the air, but on a reread, knowing how much Aizen manipulated the events, it's hard to ignore the self-proclaimed snake through Aizen's eyes was just a rat in a box. Rangiku's poem at the end of volume 46 is the answer Gin was looking for in his poem, but also the words he needed to hear. Is it not frightening to know misfortune? What is frightening is to know lost happiness will never come back again. The opening question of Rangiku's poem is the foundation Bleach is built on, echoing the sentiments found in the final volume after the defeat of Yhwach. Fear is friction. Fear is evolution, but in the face of fear, the special ingredient that keeps us living is courage. That last part is inspired by the lessons Aizen learned while being in the Mugen. Despite what Aizen took from her, Rangiku gained something irreplaceable through the Goatee 13. Comrades, friends, and found family. She chose the courage to keep moving forward, but she would never have Gin again. Gin passed away in silence, with Rangiku's tears falling on him, failing to create the one thing he wanted, a world where she wouldn't cry. Kubo questions the concepts of pain, trauma, and death from every angle, including revenge. Gin's initial placement in Squad 5, a division symbolizing sacrifice, marked the start of his journey and why he walks his path. However, by the time he is captain of Squad 3, which symbolizes despair, the door closes on the path to return. He had the right mindset, but the wrong actions and teachers. He lacked the guidance to steer his ambition away from self-destruction. Instead, he fell deeper under Aizen, wandering so far into isolation that the road to forgiveness disappeared right beneath him. It is a bittersweet ending. The future they could have shared will never exist, but Rangiku continues on, surviving as the keeper of a unique truth that she was the only one who ever possessed the loyalty and heart of a snake. I do view Gin as a tragic figure, manipulated, isolated, and in the end, unsuccessful with his goals, but I still find his character a bit redeeming. In the face of unachievable odds, he was the only one with enough courage to put himself close enough to strike a god and actually follow through with it, regardless of the outcome. But that's all for me on Genichimaru. If you made it this far, who would you like me to cover next? Comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on alerts, and have a beautiful day, an amazing afternoon, and a great night. Peace out, Zealots.